All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Um, Let me know in the chat where you're watching from. It's always good to know. We've got a bunch of people still coming in, so fantastic. Welcome for being here. London, very good. I hear Europe is warm at the moment. London, Nottingham, Warsaw, UK based. Dubai, talking of warm, Prague, India, Denmark, Paris, Dublin. Oh, wow, we've got a great Abu Dhabi, Kenya. Wow, Kenya. All right, very good. We got lots of people from all over the place. That's fantastic. Everything that I am going to share with you today works wherever you are in the world. In fact, one of the key ideas that I'm going to try and get across to you today is that if you are serious about getting a board seat, actually, it's easier to get a board seat overseas than it is in your own country. And I'm going to give you lots and lots of examples of people dotted all over the world that have managed to get board seats in different countries. So, yeah, wherever you are, so far we haven't found a single country where this doesn't work. So hopefully you will be the first. We've got South Africa, Kent in the UK, Albania. Blimey, we really have got a mixed bag. All right, fantastic. Let's get started. So look, the whole purpose of this is to show you how to get your first board seat, to get on that board ladder, because part of the problem with getting a board seat is that nobody's going to hire you for a board seat unless you've already got a board seat. It's a little bit like being right at the beginning of your career again when you needed work experience and no one would give you a job because you didn't have work experience. Board seats are like that. So we need to get on the bottom of the rung. We need to get started. Nothing I can share with you today is going to get you straight onto the board of Apple or Amazon or one of those big companies, but it will get you onto the bottom rung. And then from there, I'll show you how you work your way up. I'm going to give you lots and lots of examples of people that have followed what I'm going to share with you today and got great results from doing it. The people that are here, they come from all sorts of different backgrounds. We've got executives, we've got entrepreneurs. They're all leaders in some position. So they're all sort of management or leadership in some position. The one thing that they've all got in common is that they are ambitious, and they've kind of got that curiosity and desire to learn. Let me know in the chat, do you consider yourself an ambitious person? We tend to sort of have people that are either ambitious or ambivalent. A boardroom position is ultimately a position of leadership. And so you kind of need to have a bit of drive and ambition to get there. So let me know. I'm guessing if you're already on this webinar, you're fairly ambitious. I don't think many ambivalent people would be on it. But yeah, we've got lots of ambition. Okay, that's good to see. Look, people that we help to get board seats basically are coming in it from a number of different reasons. And it's kind of useful for yourself to figure out what is the key reason that's driving it for you. You can type this into the chat, or you can just for your own just their own understanding. Is it about personal development? So we have quite a lot of people that they just want to grow. They're sort of stagnating a little bit in their career and they just want to learn new things and push themselves a bit better. Other people are looking for additional income, and I'm going to show you later. This can be a very, very lucrative side income on top of what you're doing. Some people are looking for the high level discussion. Yeah, the best discussions I have are in the boardroom around strategy. But I'm a business geek, so I like that sort of thing. But that's a lot of people are really interested in, often in their business, in their day-to-day job, they're very in the weeds and it's very tactical and they want to look more strategic. Some people are looking for the new business opportunities, and certainly sitting on boards, I've been exposed to lots and lots of board opportunities or business opportunities. Sometimes it's about enhanced learning about new industries, learning about just learning more about the business. Sometimes when we're in our careers, we're so focused on our department, it's difficult to understand the context of the whole business, and you really get that when you're on the board. A lot of people are looking to grow their network and their influential network, and definitely boards open those doors. And probably the number one reason a lot of our members join is that they say that they're looking to make a bigger impact. They're feeling a little bit like they've only got a certain pocket of influence and they want to make a bigger impact. And others are looking for status. And I kind of joke on Instagram. Standing next to a Lamborghini with a nice watch gives you status, but on LinkedIn, which is where most of us spend far too much of our time, having a board seat is the next sort of status symbol, and it does make a difference. Yeah, people really do respond to it. So cool. Lots of people throwing things into the chat here. We've got bigger impact, growth, high level discussions, business opportunities, influential network. Yeah, absolutely. All right, these are the things that a lot of people that come to us are kind of getting frustrated with. So, or the problems that they're currently having is a lack of career path clarity. So they've kind of got this idea that, okay, they've reached sort of whatever level they're currently at, and they're not sure where to go next. They've sort of got this vague idea that, yeah, I want to sit on a board. I don't really know what that is or what it means or what it entails. Other people are very, very enthusiastic. They've already tried. They would like to sit in their own company board, but they keep getting overlooked. Some people have already come up with this experience catch 22. They've applied for jobs on boards and been told that they haven't got the experience, so they can't get there. Some people just don't have the connections to get in the door, and some people just really don't know what the board is and what it does, and so that's kind of why they want to do this. And then others are just looking for. I think everyone is kind of looking for more from their career. Like how do you get more from it? So let me know if any of those resonate with you. These are the three things that I'm going to go through today. I'm going to go through them pretty quickly, but you will get sent a recording of this webinar, so feel free to kind of go back and rewatch it. I'm going to go through why does the board want you, which is kind of the most important thing. Are you good enough? And then is it worth your time? So we'll talk about the compensation. And then at the end of that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the Veblen Director Program, which is a program that I set up 3 years ago specifically to help people get their first board seats. And I'll talk about how that works for those people that are interested. Okay, if you have questions as we go through, just chuck them into the chat. I've got my colleague Shi who's there, and between her and myself, we'll try and answer them. Some people sent some questions in ahead of time. I'll try and get to those at the end as well. But the whole idea is that you walk away from today with a good understanding of how you get your first board seat. And then if you want to stay and understand more about Veblen Director Program, I can show you how you can get a guarantee of a board seat. Now, look, this is an image that I use with our Veblen members. I kind of liken our careers to being a little bit like a snakes and ladders board. So you're kind of rolling the dice, trundling along. If you get lucky, you get a really cool job, or you get a promotion, and it's like shooting up one of those ladders, and that's fantastic. And then occasionally it all kind of goes wrong, and we get bitten by a snake, and we get made redundant, or the company shuts down, or we get passed over for a promotion. I'm an entrepreneur, so I kind of feel like I've been up several ladders and been bitten by every single snake on my journey. And a lot of people kind of have this idea that they've got their career, and the idea is that at the end, they'll sit on a number of boards and be very well paid and respected and all of that kind of thing. And really, what I'm going to share with you today is a way of shortcutting the process. So rather than waiting until the end of your career, this is how you get onto boards early. And basically, the sooner you get onto boards, the more experience you can build, the bigger the companies you can sit on boards with. You're not going to start with big companies, you'll start with small companies. And as I'll show you later, your compensation is basically tied to the market cap of the company. So the more experience you get, the bigger the companies you can sit on, the more you can earn from it. So the earlier you start, the better. All of these individuals here on the left are individuals that have followed this process and got onto boards. I think our youngest board member is actually 25 years old. So this works whatever your age. Quick background on myself. So for those of you that are not familiar, my name is Callum Leng. I'm the founder of the Veblen Director Program. My day job, I run an M&A business, mergers and acquisitions. We typically take small businesses public. So we've taken over 100 companies public in the last 10 years. And so that's kind of where I got to learn about boardrooms, and I learned some of the frustrations with boardrooms, but I also learned some of the opportunities that come with them. I've written a whole bunch of books. You've already been sent the Boardroom Blueprint book, or if you haven't, it'll be sent in the next email. You may have also been sent the Progressive Partnerships book as well. But basically, I ended up sitting on a lot of boards, advising a lot of boards, hiring a lot of board directors, realizing that the board system is deeply, deeply flawed, but that creates opportunities. And what I found was basically what I call a Trojan horse, which is a way to get you into a board so that you can get that vital experience and those contacts that you need to carry on your board career. So that's kind of my background. When I was a young entrepreneur, this is kind of interesting because this is where I started thinking about boards for the first time. So when I was a young entrepreneur, I wasn't a very good entrepreneur. I was a struggling entrepreneur, but I remember thinking at the time it'd be so cool if I could go and sit on the board of somebody else's company so I could see how they ran their business and I could maybe learn a little bit about that. The problem was, even though that seemed like a great idea for me, I didn't have anyone in my network that was sitting on boards that could kind of tell me. I, I didn't really know what a board was, if I'm truly honest. So I didn't have anyone in my network that could help me get onto a board. I didn't really know what a board was or what I had to do if I was on a board. And so consequently, there were no opportunities. So when I was a young entrepreneur and I really wanted to sit on boards, I didn't have those opportunities to sit on boards. Now, that tends to be sort of, it's one of those two things, knowledge or network, that tends to be holding most people back now. So let me know, let me know in the chat, what do you feel is holding you back mostly now from sitting on boards? Is it a lack of knowledge, or do you feel like it's a lack of network that is holding you back? Definitely, I think for me at the time, it was both of those things. And then obviously as it grows, it becomes much easier. Network, lack of network, yeah. Network and knowledge, yeah. Okay, lack of both. Okay, so similar to myself, lack of network. Yeah. All right. Fairly similar to myself then. Okay, cool. Let me give you some context as to, so basically boardrooms are incredibly exclusive, and they have been incredibly exclusive for hundreds of years. And it's not entirely by accident. So let me explain to you why boards are so exclusive. So about 10 years ago, we took our first company public. And basically, the way you take your company public is you go to the investment banks. The investment banks are the gatekeepers to the stock market. The stock market are the gatekeepers to the investors. And you go to the investment bank, you say, here's our business plan, and this is what we've done, and everything else. And so that's what we did. And the investment bank said, yep, love it. You can go public, no problem. The only thing is we don't like your board of directors. Now, what we had done is we had built a board of directors of people like us. So young, dynamic, hungry entrepreneurs, different industries, different countries, all around the world. But were people that we thought could really help drive the business forward. And what the investment bank said is, no, the stock market and the investors won't let you get away with that. You need to have people on your board that have 10 to 20 years board experience. So we kind of internally we called them the old gray hairs. Now I've got nothing against gray hair. Mine fell out before it went gray. But it was people with years and years of public markets experience that had to sit on the board. Now, what we realized at the time was there weren't actually that many people that had that experience. And so what we discovered was that actually you've got a relatively small pool of people that sit on multiple boards, and they get very well paid for this. And so they weren't actually, we ended up having to put a couple of people on our board who they didn't really want to be there. They wanted our money. They didn't really care about our business. They weren't good for the business. They weren't driving the business, but we had to do it to get into the investment banks and the stock markets. Now, obviously, if you're one of those directors, that's very lucrative. You've got this nice little niche. You can sit on multiple boards. You show up for a couple of hours meeting every quarter. You get very well paid. And it's not in your interests to open that up to everyone else. But I remember as a young entrepreneur at the time, I was very, very frustrated that that's a really bad setup. It just doesn't make sense from a business perspective. Now, so clearly no directors are going to try and change the status quo because they're getting very well paid. But what happened at the global financial crisis? So you may remember 2008, 2009, there was a global financial crisis. Trillions of dollars of investor capital was lost because all of these companies basically followed the same playbook. And when the playbook stopped working, the whole thing fell apart. Trillions of dollars were lost. And so, what you will have noticed in the press is that in the last 15 years, there's been a lot of chat about increasing board diversity. And basically, what those investors, those same investors that used to say, hey, we want gray hairs on the board. We want people with 10, 20 years board experience. Now started saying, we don't want everyone in the boardroom thinking the same. We need some fresh ideas. We need some people to challenge the status quo. And this is really what diversity is about. It's not, people get distracted by gender and race and these kind of things. It's just about having uh, different ideas in the room. And if everybody in the room went to the same schools, went to the same universities, worked in the same 5 or 6 consultants, and now end up on the board, they're all going to think along the same lines. And the idea of a board of directors is to make the best decisions for a company. And you can't make the best decisions for a company unless you're evaluating multiple different ideas. So investors who do actually control the boardroom started saying, we want a change. We want fresh ideas in the boardroom. And so you've seen this whole push for diversity on boards. And if you've been following it, what you will have noticed is that very little has changed. So really, there's a few more women sitting on boards, but really very little has changed. Now, it's very easy to kind of say, well, okay, that's because it's an old boys club and they're protecting it and they don't want to change it. But um, having now sat on multiple boards myself, I think it's kind of useful to understand why it's so difficult to affect change from the top down. So the reason is, if you imagine that you're sitting on the board of a public company, uh, if you hire a new board member, you're under a lot of scrutiny. So you're under a lot of scrutiny from the company, you're under a lot of scrutiny from shareholders, the markets, everybody else. If that new board hire, so if you say, look, I think we need some diversity, I think we need some fresh thinking in the boardroom, and you hire someone and that person turns out to be useless, or worse, they turn out to be disruptive, you've got two choices as a board member. You can fire them, but that makes the whole board look incompetent because you've just hired someone and then you've fired someone. And that can cost millions. The share price gets beaten down because investors lose confidence in the board. Or you can put up with them. And the average tenure of a publicly listed company director is 9 years. So that's a long time to put up with someone that's a pain in the butt. And so consequently, what happens is these boards say, yeah, we recognize we need diversity, we need fresh thinking, but we don't want to do anything about it. It's too risky. It's not like hiring a customer service staff where we can just fire them the next week. And so what they do is that they will just keep maintain the status quo. They'll keep hiring people that they know, people that they like, people that they trust. And so it's been very, very difficult to break into that and get decent diversity on the board. Now, typically, whenever I'm talking about this, normally somebody pops up, and nobody has so far, so well done you guys. Normally somebody pops up and says, well, it shouldn't be about diversity, it shouldn't be about women or race or gender or any of these things, it should always be on merit. And I completely agree. Hiring should always be based on merit, and it never is. So look, you think about when we had to hire those two board members with the experience. They weren't hired on merit. They weren't hired because they were the best people for the job. They were hired because they ticked a box. They ticked the box of investor experience. And so what's happening now is there's a little bit of change. There's a little bit of shift. Investors have actually raised $20 trillion into ESG funds, environmental, societal, and governance funds. And one of the core tenets of that is that they can't invest in companies that have non-diverse boards. And so there is this pressure, and this creates an opportunity for you because you can be an outsider. But remember, boards are going to be very, very nervous about taking insiders in. So we need to find a way to build trust before they will ever hire you. Let me just have a look at this question from Paul. What about boards in ambidextrous organizations that are employing explore versus exploit in these orgs? Is it still boards that don't like disruption, or is the governance structure different that allows more ambidextry? And okay, Paul, I'm going to come back to that because that's quite an involved question. So let me press on, and it might get answered in a later way as we move forward. So look, basically the key message here is that boards are very, very nervous about hiring the wrong people. And so what we're trying to do as aspiring board members is to make us the safe choice, to make them feel safe about hiring them. Now, here's one of the key ideas that we have at the Veblen Director Program, which is don't apply for a board seat, create one. And this is a really important idea, and it kind of goes contrary to everything that you will read elsewhere. There are 330 million businesses in the world, for-profit businesses in the world. Less than 1% of them have an active functioning board. So if you think about it, all the publicly listed companies, all of the big companies in the world, but the majority of companies are small companies and they don't have active functioning boards. So when you see a job ad on LinkedIn or on a job site for a board seat, first of all, there's a 90% chance it's not a real job ad. Oftentimes, most times, in fact, it is either recruitment companies that are trying to get your CV and contact details, or it's companies that have already decided who they want to put on the board and they just put out a job to keep HR happy. So don't apply for a board seat. It's just a path to frustration. But also, even if that was a genuine job opportunity, it's one of 1% of the companies in the world. And so everybody that wants a board seat is going for that same very small percentage opportunity. And so this is why you keep getting knocked back with you haven't got enough experience. So what we say is, look, don't go for that 1% at the top. Start down below. Start with the companies that don't have a board seat. So what we do at the Veblen Director Program, what I'd encourage you to do, is find a small company that doesn't have a board yet and create a board of advisors. Something super, super simple, very low key, take the pressure off. You don't have to go through the whole formality of boards and company secretaries and all of the theater that goes with a traditional board seat. Just a monthly meeting as a board of advisors can be super, super valuable for a small business. And it gets you the chance to say, hey, I'm sitting on the board of such and such a company. You can update your LinkedIn profile. So this is the approach that we take. And what we're trying to do here is you're basically building trust with an entrepreneur, a small business. It can be a local cafe, it can be a local startup. It doesn't really matter. But what you're trying to do is sit as an advisor board. So you've got no legal responsibility. And this is important as well. Until you get experience with what's going on boards, you don't want to be taking on the legal responsibility that comes with a full director, because it does have implications. Whereas if you're just on an advisory board, you've got no legal risk. So you're just there to help that company. And look, being a small business owner is tough. So they need all the help that they can get. And basically what you're committing is to have a virtual coffee with them once a month, with you and 4 or 5 other people, to hear about what's working, what's not working. And hopefully you've got some introductions, people in your network you could connect them to, some ideas that might save them from going down a bad path. You know, one introduction to a small business can completely transform their trajectory for life. So more importantly for you, it now allows you to update your LinkedIn profile and say, hey, I'm sitting on the board of XYZ company. Now you do that 2 or 3 times and suddenly you'll find companies coming to you and saying, hey, I see you're sitting on the board of 2 or 3 companies. We're also a company in this area. We would be interested in talking to you. And that's where the whole game shifts. And basically, I'm going to go through these things on the right-hand side, these components: connections, knowledge, profile, leadership, value, delivery, and leverage. But basically, the idea is you're going to start with a small advisory company. You're going to bounce up to a PLC apprentice. Now, publicly listed company is much different from a small startup. So they've got public investors, they've got regulations, they've got lots of rules. again, it's quite difficult to, even if you're sitting on the board of a small private company, it's quite difficult to make that jump to a public company. So what we're going to do, this Trojan horse, is you're going to go to that public company and you're going to say, hey, look, would you like us to build an apprentice board for you? Now, an apprentice board is super simple. It just means that you and 2 or 3 other people will sit in on the board meetings and you're just there to learn. Now, why would a company allow you to do this? Well, first of all, it doesn't cost them anything. You're not charging for your time. You're just there to learn. Secondly, it allows them to go out to the market and say, hey, look how proactive we're being. So if this is a typical all-male board, for example, and they have they bring in diversity through the apprentice board, or you help them bring in diversity through the apprentice board, they can now go to the market and say, hey, look at us, we are being proactive, we're taking steps to bring diversity on the board. Now, as an apprentice, your job is just to sit there and listen. It's not to contribute in any way. But what we encourage you to do is to become the most valuable person in the boardroom. And the way that you do that is board members have a bunch of work they don't like doing. So I mentioned ESG earlier, environmental societal governance. Every single government on the planet, maybe not the US government anymore, even the US government, is passing down rules and regulations around environment, societal, and governance. And so every public company has to fill in a bunch of paperwork around how they're taking steps to make sure that they're complying with all of these different regulations. There's not a single board member on the planet that is rubbing their hands together in glee saying, yay, I get to do that. So as an apprentice, you can put your hand up and say, would you like us to do the ESG reporting for you? Another thing that publicly listed company board members are terrible at doing is investor relations. They're terrified of talking to investors for some reason. So you can put your hand up and say, would you like us to help you with some investor relations? Now, in almost every case, companies will say, yeah, we'd love that. That'd be perfect. So for them, it's a free resource that's doing all the jobs that they don't want to do. For you, you're getting incredible experience. But why I call it a Trojan horse is that basically you're now working for them. You're in the board, you're presenting stuff to them, you're sitting in all the meetings, you're learning the power structures, how it all happens. And then at the end of the year, or 6 months or year, whatever the term is, it's easier for them and it's safe for them to bring you on as a full-time board member than if they were just hiring somebody fresh. So they know that you're now contributing. They know that you're not a risk, that you're going to deliver real value. And so that's kind of how you get in. And we've had countless of our members that have followed this approach and got in like that. Anika's just asking, what about security and confidentiality? Do you sign an NDA as an apprentice? Yeah, absolutely. Same with an advisory board as well. You're committing and we have there's generic NDAs now that you can get, but most companies have their own NDAs. But absolutely, a board position is a very trusted position, and you would commit that you're not going to share anything that you learn. So Ralph White actually owns a cafe in Atlanta in the US, and joined a webinar like this a few years ago. Reached out to me, said, I really would love to get on the board of a public listed company here in the US. And I said, well, look, you can do that, but here's the pathway to do it. And I really recommend looking overseas first of all. And so that's what he did. And he ended up becoming an apprentice for a European publicly listed company. Him and 2 other apprentices did some fantastic work around their ESG reporting, did all of the work for that company, which they were super, super grateful for. Based off that, an American sports and leisure company, sports and entertainment company that is listed in the US, offered him a board seat, and he's been a full board member of that company for about 18 months now. So, and I think he's making about $40,000 a year for that company. But he really kind of followed that path. Yeah, I'm sure he'll go on to bigger and better things as well when he chooses to. So let's run through these, because these are the 5 key components that you need. Now, they're not they're numbered, but they're not sequential. So basically what I mean by that is you kind of want to be going through these over and over again. So when you start, when you're looking for your first advisory position, you're going to need the right connections, the knowledge, the profile, learn how to deliver value, then leverage it. And that will get you to apprentice level. And you're going to need a whole new bunch of connections, knowledge, profile, value, and leverage. And every time you're kind of taking a step up. One of the other ideas that we have is that every board seat is not your final board seat. It's just a stepping stone. So a lot of people, especially when they first start thinking about this, they think, right, this would be my dream board seat. I want a board position in this country, in this industry. Rather than do that, what I would say is for your first 1 or 2 board seats, just go for any company. It really doesn't matter. It's just a stepping stone to get you on the ladder. So you can update your LinkedIn profile, so you can talk, you can learn, you can get some new connections. Really, what the company does is less important than the fact that you're now being seen by your network. And I'll come back onto this later, as somebody that sits on boards, and that's really important. Bakula asks, is there a tenure for an advisory board member? Yeah, it's up to you. Generally, our members kind of go between 6 and 12 months. It needs to be long enough that you can demonstrate value. But obviously, you don't want to be, if the position's never going to go anywhere, if that company is never going to be able to pay you, if you can't find a way to monetize that role, you don't want to be stuck in it forever. So 6 to 12 months is a pretty good term. Okay, let's have a look at connections, because this is kind of the key one. You may have seen politicians that do an absolutely terrible job in government, and then they leave government and they walk straight into $1 million a year board position for a consultant company or something like that. It's not because they suddenly became geniuses and hard workers. It's because of the connections that they have. It's because they're door openers. So ultimately, probably more than anything else, if you're well connected, then you can get yourself a board seat. And a lot of people tend to leave their network. It's kind of an organic thing. What I'd encourage you to do, if you're serious about this, is to start being very, very proactive about building your network. What you want to build as you're starting out is different to what you want to build when you're going for bigger positions. So starting out, you want to be building relationships with entrepreneurs, small business owners, angel investors. Those are the ones that really, and directors of existing companies, those are the ones that really make a difference right now. If you were going for a board seat with Apple or Amazon or these guys, then what you want to be looking at is politicians, hedge fund managers, institutional money. It's a very, very different network that you have to build at that level. So at each level, you kind of change who you need to connect to. If you haven't already, I think you should have, or maybe in the follow-up emails that you get, look out. There's my first book I wrote was Progressive Partnerships. It's all about how you attract great people into your network. And it does really makes the biggest difference. Susie's one of our members. She says, almost everyone I've met through Veblen has been fascinating. The joy of this network is in having rich, honest conversations with people from entirely different industries. So whether it's Veblen or whether it's another network, networks are great ways to meet people with similar interests. So obviously with Veblen, everyone that is in that network is sitting on multiple boards. Now that's a very powerful network to be connected to, but there's lots of other networks out there that are super valuable. Okay, knowledge. So I've been talking about diversity on boards being about fresh thinking, and that's absolutely correct. But you've got to be the sort of the one bit of knowledge you really need to have is you've got to be able to articulate your ideas in the boardroom to investors, to senior staff. So you're going to have to know, if you don't already, you're going to have to know some basic understanding of things like capital markets, investor relations, financial accounting, fundraising. Now, that might all be completely new to you. Don't worry about it. You don't have to be an expert in these things at all. You just need to have enough understanding that you can articulate your ideas in terms that they understand. So Don't be daunted by it. It's not a huge amount of work to learn this, but it is important if you're serious about it. Avashni is one of our members. She says, what the Veblen community offered me was the opportunity to understand the knowledge around getting boards, but also the knowledge that goes into how to be a board member and what that actually means. And I think there's another part to it that Avashni doesn't mention is everyone on this call has got years, sometimes decades of knowledge and experience. Most people only know how to monetize that through a job. I apply for a job and this company pays me for my knowledge and experience. When that goes away, or if that situation changes, you've got to be able to learn how to monetize other things that you've got. And so we have a whole section within the Veblen community, which is called Learn to Earn. So once you've got on a couple of boards, learning how to monetize your experience combined with your connections, combined with these boards that you're sitting on, it opens up lots of different earning potential, different impact potential, but you need to know how to not just have that knowledge, but how to adapt that knowledge to get the best results. The third one is profile leadership. And so there's a line from my friend Daniel Parisi, says, you are who Google says you are. In our world, I'd actually say you are who LinkedIn says you are. Ideally, your board seats are going to come because somebody is going to refer you to somebody else. Now, the first thing that other person is going to do is they're going to look at your LinkedIn profile. So you've got to look like a board member. So if you haven't updated your LinkedIn profile, or if you're one of these people that only updates it every time you look for work, it's time to update it. It's time to start sharing some board related content. And it really is worth spending a bit of time on this. And I've been thinking, so I've had a lot of questions in the last 12 months or so about the impact of AI on people's careers. The two things that I think are so fundamental is having a strong personal brand, a reputation, and having good connections. And if you've got those two things, then combine that with the knowledge. And yes, AI is going to dramatically change things. But if you've got connections, you've got good understanding of how to apply your knowledge, and you've got a good brand that people trust, there will always be opportunities for you. So those first two, knowledge and connections, is really about how you get those first board seats. Profile leadership is really about amplification. So the bigger your profile is, if you think about it, the average person knows 200 people, the chances of someone in those 200 having the perfect opportunity for you is very, very small. If 2,000 people know you or 20,000 people know you, then the chances of one of them having a great opportunity for you goes up exponentially. And so this is why, even if you're somebody that kind of thinks, oh, I really don't want to be doing this, look at me, profile building, then actually in terms of your career, it's really, really important. And it's not actually about look at me, it's look at what I can do, look at the results I bring for my client, for my company, for the people around me. Let me just answer this one. Stuart says, how do you balance your LinkedIn profile with a director's profile? How do you communicate good connections on LinkedIn? Yeah, so good question. Look, it's direct. It's not like you change. If you've built your profile around being an IT, for example, you're not going to suddenly disregard that and only start talking about good corporate governance structures. What you would talk about is IT in the boardroom. So you find what you're already known for and expertise, and you just want to interject it into the boardroom conversation. So sharing stories about what's happening in the boardroom and companies in your industry, just so that when somebody looks at you, it doesn't look like you know nothing about the board. It looks like you're already thinking about board level conversations. How do you communicate good connections on LinkedIn? I mean, A is just building connections with interesting people. And then if you're engaged in an interesting conversation on a LinkedIn post with somebody interesting, that demonstrates that you've got a good connection there. So it doesn't need to be more complicated than that. Nam is one of our members in Switzerland. And so he joined the Veblen Director Program in March 2023 with 0 board positions. 6 months later, I had 4 independent board appointments, all because I learned how to position himself. So Noam was an internal, or is an internal auditor, and was very, very uncomfortable with building an external profile. It took a long time to get him updating his LinkedIn profile and being a bit more proactive. But once he did, once he got comfortable with it, once he found his voice, as he said, he got 4 independent board appointments in very short order. So yeah, it can move very, very quickly. So those first 3 are really about getting your board seat. The next one is around how you add value on the board. So it's not enough. We don't like, I can show anyone how to get a board seat. I don't want to add, there's enough bad board members out there. I don't want to add more to that. So we want you to be delivering real value to the companies when you sit on those boards. So that comes down to there's an individual level to this. Like, what is your past experience? Every one of us has a unique set of views and um, insights that we can bring to a company. But you want to be very, very focused on how you add value, because as you're leveraging one board seat to the next board seat, you want to talk about how you've added value to that. Dr. Namrata says, my value is to bring the focus back to the bigger picture and make sure that the team doesn't forget that. Be the guide, not the hero. You pause, you reflect, you see what is the true core issue. You're there to help them as their guide, as an advisor. And that's very, very true. I think oftentimes, especially small business owners can, well, actually, but executives in general can get very stuck in the weeds of the day-to-day, everything that's going on, every fire that they're trying to put out. And your job as the board can just be to help them take a step back, take a breath, and look at the bigger picture and make sure they're still going in the right direction. The final one is leverage. And so this is what I mean about this idea of the next board seat that you get is not your final board seat. It's just a stepping stone to the one after that. So the goal is not an advisory board seat or an apprenticeship. It's not even your first board seat. It's to get to that point where you, ideally, for you, it might be sitting on multiple board seats, being very, very well paid, respected in industries that you like, that you're learning about. So just view everything as a stepping stone to that. You've got to get started on the first rung of the ladder and then leverage that up. So basically, in terms of leverage, there's 2 ways of looking at it. One is that when you join a company, you want to use leverage to help that company grow. If you can help that company grow, that's fantastic. If that company is never going to grow, and look, that is the reality sometimes, you want to be able to leverage that position to get into another position. So you should always be looking one step ahead as you go through. Matthias, it's a great story. I'll share a little bit more of him later. He says, my early connections at Veblen really helped me to land my first board. I didn't apply. From my conversations with the Veblen members, they endorsed me to join one of the boards. It's more important to have the right conversations with the right people rather than having a nice CV. And I'd absolutely agree with that. That's why we talked about the power of connections. All right, so let me know, does that all make sense to everyone so far? Any questions on the connections, knowledge, profile, value, or leverage? Kay is asking, can people in full-time jobs become board members without their current employers seeing this as a conflict of interest? Right, great question, Kay. Look, you should be able to sit on boards. My personal view is that you will be a much better employee if you sit on the board of other companies. It gives you such a better understanding of the way businesses operate. Not everyone in HR sees it that way. So, and I kind of butt heads with HR on this. So look, it's going to depend on your company and how proactive they are. Most, like especially the advisory board positions, they're not going to take more than 2 or 3 hours of your time a month. So it's not going to be a time drag. And as long as it's not obviously conflicting with your own company, and there's no reason why you would do that, then in most cases, it's not a problem. There's only a couple of companies that have very anal HR that don't seem to like it. But yeah, that will kind of depend on your own company. All right. Just in terms of profile, because it's kind of interesting. It's one of our members who has got a whole bunch of board seats. Again, didn't have a profile until she started looking at this, really updated her profile. I'd recommend connecting with her if you get a chance. First supervisory board role reflection. So she is now working on a publicly listed company. And I think that was all within 1 year, or I think is 13 months of joining. So she's got on about 4 or 5 seats, several paid ones, including a paid publicly listed business. Now, so hopefully that's kind of given you a good understanding of why the opportunities exist, and why a board would want you, why you can get hired, how you can kind of use this Trojan horse. There is always this question of, am I good enough? And I do kind of get this. We often get faced with this sort of imposter syndrome of, okay, look, I've used these techniques and I've been offered a board seat and I've just gone and I've got my first board meeting and I've got absolutely no idea what they're talking about. And I feel like a complete imposter. Look, I would say to you, in my mind, you should feel like an imposter. Everybody on this call is a leader. As leaders, we have to put up our hands, take responsibility for things, say, okay, we'll sort that out, even if we don't know exactly how we're going to sort those things out. There are plenty of times when I've sat in board meetings and I felt completely out of my depth. But because I felt out of my depth, afterwards, I've gone and spoken to the chair of that meeting. I've gone and spoken to a director, and I said, like, what reading do I need to do to make sure I don't feel like that again? Feeling like an imposter shows that you care about the results. You care about delivering real value to that company. The people that don't feel like imposters when they join boards, so the gray hairs that joined our first board, they didn't feel like imposters. They didn't care enough about our business and the results that we were trying to get. And so I would say to you, look, put yourself as a leader, you want to be putting yourself in these situations where you do feel a little bit out of your depth, and that's what drives you to become better. So this great quote from Childish Gambino: "If it makes you nervous, you're doing it right," which is pretty good philosophy. Is Christina asks, is there an easy way to connect on LinkedIn with all Veblen members? Yeah, I think a lot of them have got Veblen on their profiles. So if you go in and if you go to the Veblen web page, Veblen LinkedIn page, I think they probably show up as employees, but they're not employees, and then you can connect with them there. Okay, one thing that does come up a lot. So a lot of people have this idea that they need to have some kind of director's certificate or qualification to be on the board. You actually don't. So I've sat on multiple publicly listed companies, dozens of boards. I don't have any certificates or qualifications. What you do find sometimes is if you get invited to sit on the board of a publicly listed company, that market may take you through some basic training, just making sure you don't do insider trading or those sort of things. It's normally a few hours. So anything like directors of institutes, they have these qualifications. Financial Times has a director's certificate. Look, they might be interesting if you want to do that. Basically, what they'll teach you is they'll teach you good corporate governance of an S&P 500 company. So they'll take the kind of the Harvard Business School approach of an S&P 500 company should be doing this in terms of good corporate governance. And that's what they'll teach you. And if you regurgitate the facts, you'll get a certificate. The reality is that doesn't apply to 99% of businesses in the world. And also, no boards will hire you just because you've got a certificate. That's not what they're interested in. They're interested in how you can add value. And those biggest companies, they don't care about certificates either, because they've so, there's so many lawyers and advisors. What they're interested in is who you're connected to, what your experience is, what value can you deliver to the company. It's got nothing to do with certificates and qualifications. I see a lot of people doing it, but it's more like procrastination. They would rather go and spend 6 months doing a qualification rather than actually go and talk to a company about joining a board. So yeah, much, much more valuable just to get on and start doing it. Actually be a board member. Is it worth it? So like I kind of talked about, yeah, you're under a lot of scrutiny, especially in a public company. You feel like an imposter. Is it worth it? Well, look, the average starting salary for a non-executive director, which is referred to as a NED, is $40,000 per annum. Now, remember, this is a part-time role. So for some people, that's not a lot of money. For some people, that's a huge amount of money. But for a part-time role, it's pretty good. And look, we've got public companies all over the world, and that's basically the starting salary that we offer all of our board members is $40,000 per year. Privately, it can be super, super varied. So, sometimes it's completely free. Sometimes it's for shares. Sometimes we've got, I just placed somebody into a board position in Dubai for $3,000 a month at a private company. So that's 36,000 a year. I know somebody else that's making 250,000 a year in a private company sitting on the board. So it really, really fluctuates. Basically, the rule of thumb is the bigger the company, the more they will pay. So the bigger the market cap. So these are three individuals based in the US sitting on some high profile companies. Michael is making 1.4 million a year salary from his board seats. Joseph is making 2.5 million a year. Andrew is making nearly 9 million a year. That's the salary that they're getting paid. But this is the other thing that I would like you to think about. Don't focus on the salary, because I guarantee these three gentlemen are making at least that much money again through the opportunities that they get through sitting on those boards. So, for example, there are boards. Generally, I don't sit on many boards anymore. I push all of the opportunities into the Veblen network, but there are boards that I would pay to sit on. For example, SpaceX board. I would pay a couple of $100,000 a year to sit in that boardroom because I could leverage the connections there, the connections to investors to help my other businesses and other things. So don't worry too much about salary. Look at the other ways that you can monetize those positions. Christina says, not to speak about the fact that corporate governance is so different in each country, even across the EU. Yeah, correct, completely correct. And look, people can't even agree in the in the same country what is good corporate governance. So, yeah, look, it's they've sold it very well as something that you need to get, but I've never seen anyone on a board ever require someone to have a certificate. Ronnie says, is that 40K pro rata or 40K in your pocket? It's 40K per year. So yeah, after tax and everything else is what you actually put in your pocket. All right, let's look at timeframes for this. So I started doing this webinar about 3 years ago, and I basically said, look, I think we've got a 3-year window where you can play the diversity card, whether that's, hey, I'm an entrepreneur, I should join a corporate organization, or hey, I'm in the oil and gas industry. I can give you a diverse view in something else, whether it's gender, whether it's race. But the boards and investors specifically were saying we want boards to have diverse views. We want fresh thinking in the boardroom. Now, that was an opportunity. I said, I think we have about 3 years. I think we've probably got another year. In the US, there's a lot of backlash against it, but it doesn't actually change the fact that companies want the best results and investors want the best results, and they want diversity on board. So I think there's still a window of opportunity. And if you can, but I do think it's going to shut. I think what investors are going to swing back and they're going to start saying, okay, we don't care. We want experience. And so we kind of take diversity as a given now. And so I think we've sort of got this one more year where I'd really, if there's something you're interested in, get that initial board experience so that you can get on that bottom rung and get in there, because Yeah, I think that it will get harder, but once you're on the inside, the value goes up exponentially. Um, Christina says that's precisely why the number of board seats per person should be capped to a max of 3. Uh, yeah, I kind of it depends. We've got retired people that are sitting on 5 or 6, and I know that they're adding really good value. But there is that when you combine the 50 plus white male profile with a tendency to postpone retirement and literally go to the grave from a board to preserve sense of status. Uh, yeah, I agree, but I think this is it's because everyone's focusing on the top. I think if you actually start from the bottom, and this is what we do, because I think once a company has a diverse board, they'll always have a diverse board. And as they grow, they just see the value. It's much harder to change from the top down. Has been my experience. So we focus on the bottom up. Um, Look, I think what's interesting is when we talk to our members, this really is so much more about kind of creating a bigger impact. And I talked earlier about how hard it is for small business owners. Um, you've got tons of experience, you've got amazing contacts, you've got unique insights. You can really help a business grow. And while everyone focuses on these big companies, the reality is if you could help a small business with 10 employees to double, that has far more impact on the community, on the economy, than a lot of what governments are focusing on with big companies or venture capitalists starting on and focusing on with startups. And so you've got a real opportunity to make a huge impact and to take everything that you've already learnt about and use it to support small businesses. So yeah, it's pretty inspiring seeing what people do. Um, this is one thing that always comes up. Who's got the time for this? How much time does it take? Well, look, there's a couple of answers to that. When you're on big boards, that you might only have like one meeting every month or every 2 months. Those meetings are typically 2 or 3 hours. But it's been likened to being a pilot. So you can have months and months where very little happens. You can also have months where it's very full on. If there's a takeover or there's a problem or there's an issue with the share price, it can involve a lot of phone calls and a lot of time. So the key thing is it's about prioritizing it. If you think that this is something that could really make a difference, and I talked about the status, which leads to higher job offers and the connections. When you sit on a board with smart people and you add real value, then they invite you to go and sit on other boards, and you just get all of these opportunities. So uh, yeah, it's kind of it's up to you, but to me, this is how I would prioritize my time. One key thing is you need to be able to make decisions, and boards need people who can make decisions, take leadership, even when they don't have all of the answers. So it's what little bit what I was talking about was sort of that inferiority complex or imposters syndrome. If you want to be successful in this, you need to be somebody that's willing to say, "Yep, I'm going to step in. I'm going to do this." Um, so you kind of need to ask yourself, are you somebody that can make a decision right now about your own future? Because if you can't, uh, you're probably not going to be somebody that's useful to a company on those in the board. You really, as an entrepreneur, I'm looking for my board members to be decisive and to help me make decisions rather than take too long about it. Cool. So look, let me know, because we kind of got to the end of the first section. Let me know whether you have got some value so far. Has it given you some new ideas about your board journey? And let me know whether you're willing to keep exploring. So basically what I've been talking about now is kind of the why, the context, where the situation is for companies, what they're looking for. What I'm going to get into now is the how. So 3 years ago, I set up the Veblen Director Program. And I'm going to show you how our members actually get so many of these board seats. Brent just says, ironically, I've just realized that I could do an advisor for my startup. Yeah, if you, could you send the advisory link? Because you can fill in an application and our members could come and be advisors for your startup. Marlene says this has been invaluable. Great, that's great to hear. Great insights. Want to explore more and learn more. Okay, cool. Let me just have some cold coffee. I knew when I was making that I wasn't going to get a chance to drink it. All right, let's press on. Victoria says, thank you very much. Very useful. Okay, great. Look, this came about because I was sitting on the board of, in fact, I was chairing a publicly listed company in the UK. We had decided to create an advisory, an apprentice board position to bring diversity onto our board. And so we brought in some young people, we brought in some disabled people, we brought in people from different minority backgrounds, and it was fantastic. We got so much value from it as a board. But those individuals would come to me after the meetings and say, hey, look, I'm a little bit overwhelmed. Like, I really appreciate the opportunity, but I kind of don't understand what's going on. And so I was kind of thinking about, how do I get them up to speed? And at the same time, I was getting really frustrated with sitting on boards where board members were in it for themselves and not in it for the stakeholders. And that was kind of getting frustrating. So I decided to build this program called the Veblen Director Program. And basically the idea was to provide individuals with all the knowledge that they need, both to get a board seat, but also to add real value when they're on the board, to basically connect them with a network. So what I realized was that if you can connect to people that, or if you can kind of instantly connect to people that are already sitting on dozens or scores or hundreds of boards around the world, it just makes life so much easier. So when a problem comes up that you don't know the answer to, someone will know the answer. If your company is looking to do an acquisition, somebody in your network will know a company that's looking to be bought. And so basically, I realized if you have the knowledge and you have the network, it attracts the opportunities, because your network will be always coming to you with those opportunities. So that was the idea. But I really wanted to take this idea of a high-performing environment. So this is something that's been key to me as an entrepreneur. Is, look, you might be sitting on this webinar going, right, this is fantastic. This is what I want to do. I'm motivated. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to create a board advisory, and I'm going to get my board seat, get on the board ladder. And you're all motivated and you're all excited. And then this webinar finishes and you go back to your inbox and you've got 30 new emails to deal with and 100 new WhatsApps that you have to deal with. And you kind of get distracted. 6 months passes and you go, oh, I really should have done that. So look, one of the things I realized is it's very, very difficult to kind of break out of our normal setting. And the best way that I found is to put yourself in a high performing environment. What I mean by that is, if you're constantly surrounded by people that are high achievers, that are doing what you want to do. It's why people go to gyms. Like, trying to work out on your own is very difficult to stay motivated. But if you go to the gym every day and you've got a group of people that you meet there every day, and they're all performing at a higher level, even when you feel down, you still go and do the work, because you don't want to let other people down. And so that was the idea behind the Veblen Director Program, is to create this high performing environment, bring great people into it, and then just surround yourself with people that are sitting on boards, aspiring to get onto bigger boards, and it just motivates you. And I get motivated every single day. Now, we've got to a point, so we've been doing this for 3 years now. We've got hundreds of members sitting on hundreds of boards all around the world. We now guarantee everyone that joins, and by the way, we interview everyone. We don't let people in unless we genuinely believe that they've got the curiosity and the desire. But if they get interviewed and they get invited in, we guarantee them a board seat within 12 months. And that's because every single member that has joined Veblen has managed to get a board seat within 12 months. If for some reason you didn't, we would keep working with you for free until you get that board seat. We've never had to do that. We had one member that took 13 months, not 12 months, but they were an exception. That's one member out of hundreds. So look, we do interview everyone, and it's just basically we want to make sure that not only are we sure that we can add value to you, so we can, yeah, we can definitely help you get a board seat, but we also want to make sure that you can add value to the community. And so everybody in the Veblen group is somebody that we feel can add value to that community. So everyone's contributing. It's a very, very supportive community because everybody wants you to get the best board seat possible, because the better board seat you're sitting on, the better connection you are to them. So it's a super, super supportive community. Everyone's helping it, everyone else, and giving them connections and leads. We limit it to 5 new members per month so that we can make sure the team can look after you, can onboard you properly, get you connected, and do that. And so what all of our members commit to is these 3 things: expansion, ownership, and accountability. And expansion is basically that mindset of, look, I'm willing to push myself. I'm willing to go a little bit further, try a little bit harder, try some new things, be a part of something bigger, be a part of something I haven't done before. So all of our members kind of have that mindset and that willingness. Second thing is around ownership. Ultimately, you'll be successful at this or not because of the actions that you take. So we want people thinking like owners. And also, when you're on boards, you need to be talking to owners with that sense of ownership. You need to be talking to them in terms of taking ownership of their goals. It's not this isn't an employee mindset of, oh, somebody else will sort this out for me. It's got to be, hey, look, this is my career. I'm going to make this happen. And that's really inspiring to be around. And the third one is accountability. And it's not just you have your own accountability group that holds you accountable to getting paid board seats. But it's not just accountability to them. It's not even accountability to us. In fact, you should hold us accountable. We want to be held accountable to getting the results. But it's really accountability to the future self. Where do you want to be in 5 years? What boards do you want to be sitting on in 5 years' time? And then if everyone in our group is holding themselves accountability to where they want to be in 5 years, it's a super, super motivating and inspiring group to be around. And it just blows me away. I mean, these kind of posts are getting into our forum all of the time. People just sitting on so many different boards, really, really cool things. I'll just share this one very quickly. So Dr. Keith joined a webinar like this a few years ago, reached out to me, said, I think I might be too old for Veblen. I convinced him he wasn't. And within 3 months, he had joined 3 small startups in Europe. He was based in the US, joined 3 small companies in Europe. And then he posted so you can see here, I want to give another update on our journey. So he posted on LinkedIn every week about how he was adding value to these businesses. And an HR manager for an S&P 500 company in the US saw his posts, reached out to him, offered him a board seat for an S&P 500 company, or offered him an interview, not for the main board, but for a second tier board for this huge, huge multi-billion-dollar corporation. He did the interview. He was accepted it. They offered him $168,000 a year to join, and he turned them down because he was having so much fun with the smaller companies. And all of that happened. I think it happened in like 4 months of joining. So look, if this is something that you already know, definitely I'm interested in learning more about. Not that you're definitely going to do it, but that you would like to talk to one of the team. Click the link that has just been posted in the chat. Even if you're not sure, just open that link so you've got it for later. What I'll do is I'll talk more through what happens when you join, and then you can fill it in later. If you fill it in, basically, you're just going to book a half-hour call with one of our team. It's a very friendly chat, and we'll find out whether it's right for you. Now, normally, basically, what you're signing up for is 3 years of this program, because we really want to make sure that we'll get you board seats in the first year, but we want to then leverage that, make sure you're earning and you're getting better paid and better excited positions over time. So What we normally do is there's 3 years of all of this is $9,150. And basically, since you have sat through this webinar and asked cool questions, today we're going to let you sign up. If you click that, if you get offered a position, you will get a 48% discount. So you get 3 years of Veblen for $5,550. We do have some payment options as well. So you can pay in 3 installments, so 1,999 paid over 3 months. If you get invited into this, you decide this is something you want to do, as soon as you make the first payment, you get full access to the program. So you get into the community, you get started, and then you just make the 2 extra payments. And that gets you everything in Veblen for 3 years, no additional costs, nothing to pay. After the 3 years, if you want to stay in the community, it's just $150 a month after that. But for the first 3 years, you don't pay anything else. So if you definitely know already that there's something you want to do, just click on the link and start filling it in. Like I say, we've got to limit it to 5 people per month, and we've got 60 people on this call. So do that. I want to share this. I know we noticed we had some people from South Africa on this chat. Sometimes South Africa is one of those countries where people say, oh, yeah, this won't work in South Africa. And actually, we've got quite a few members in South Africa that have got great board seats. So this was an email from Yvonne to one of her friends that she CC'd me on that said, "Dear Bianca, further to my brief discussion with you regarding this program, I've now secured 2 advisory board positions. I'm in final discussions for appointment as a fully paid board member of a private equity fund and asset manager, which will be established in Abu Dhabi. All 3 are international board positions. The networking opportunities are endless, and I'm learning something new every day. Please do not hesitate to reach out if you have any questions about my VDP experience." A short, almost 2 months. So in less than 2 months, she had got 3 positions, including a paid one in Abu Dhabi. They're all international. So yeah, it happens very, very quickly if you want it to. Like I said, if you already know that this is definitely right for you, just click the link and start filling that in. I will go through the rest of the stuff because we've got some other bonuses and things that we've added in to make sure our members get the best results. So what do you get? Let's talk about knowledge. So this is kind of constantly being updated as we get feedback from people on board saying, hey, look, we've come across this problem. We've never seen that before. What I do, I'm not the expert on everything to do with everything on boards globally. What I do is I bring in experts to share their knowledge. I'll come back to that one. But we cover everything that you need to know. And by the way, this is like adult vocational learning. This is adult learning. You kind of go in, you pick the stuff that you need as you need it. So when you're starting off on advisory boards, just focus on that stuff. You don't need to learn all about the capital markets yet. If a company is looking to raise capital, and then you want to learn the stuff about capital raise. So you can dip in and out of the content as you want, but everything that you need is there. And our members keep coming back and going back through the content. So it's all there. Mostly, or a lot of it's kind of interviews with experts. So I bring in people from around the world that are experts in their field. A lot of our former, or not former members, current members, but well-established members also share some of their learning. Darren Finkelstein is one of the top accountability coaches in the world. Daniel Priestley is a regular on Diary of a CEO and talks all about personal branding. Vicky Sylvester is one of the UK's foremost ESG authorities. Neil Facey is an Olympic champion that sat on one of my boards. Graham I'll talk about in a minute. So lots and lots of cool people. We have live coaching calls every single week. So we've got Dr. Adam does a group leadership coaching session. Shelly Ann's just started doing presence and precision. Coach Perrin. So Coach Perrin was actually a senior manager at Google for 10 years. He then went to Airbnb and managed Airbnb Asia. Made a fortune, retired, and now does executive coaching, but he has a wait list. You can't get on it. but he does every couple of weeks, he does a session just for Veblen members. So absolutely incredible insights into executive careers. So really, I mean, probably worth the course just for that alone. If you do sign up, you'll go to a page like this that says, firstly, put away your credit card. It's not a sales call. It's really just to understand whether you can add value, whether we can add value. I mentioned Ralph already. The two people that he was on the apprentice board in Europe were Marissa and Hettel, who both really helped with that ESG. Marissa is now sitting on a UK PLC. Hettel is now sitting on another European PLC. So both of them used it as a springboard to get into other things. Graham Mulligan does a monthly call that any of our Veblen members can jump into. And this is the one call that we don't record. So he sits on 5 boards, 3 of which are multi-billion-dollar boards. He shares stuff that is, I can't believe the stuff that he shares, but we're not allowed to record it. So he really gives you a behind the scenes of what goes on in boardrooms. He's incredibly just amazing with the stuff that he shares. So yeah, look, it's 12 months. Actually, you get 36 months, so you get 3 years of all of this. Book a chat with one of our team and just see whether they think it'd be worth it for you. You also have the network side of things. So the knowledge, look, the knowledge is incredible. I haven't seen anywhere else sharing that knowledge, but to me, the real value is the network. So when you join, you get put into an accountability group. That's typically about 8 people. And you connect with them you have a session with them every single week. Their job is to hold you accountable to getting a paid board seat. So the objective is they're all going to try and help you get a paid board seat. You're going to try and help them get a paid board seat as well. We have our community manager, Rochelle. She looks after you. She'll do the onboarding with you, make sure you smoothly fit into your accountability group. We also have the experts. We have our own board of directors. Our own board of directors does an Ask Me Anything session every single month, so you can chat to them and ask them any questions. I do various live sessions throughout. We've got a YouTube channel which has got a ton of content on there, lots of testimonies from our members about how they got their first board seats. This is a great story. So Oluwafemi joined us because he had a specific non-profit that he wanted to join. And by the way, oftentimes this question comes up: is it worth joining non-profits and charities? A lot of people do. What I would say is businesses they value it more than no board experience, but it's better to have actual profit company experiences rather than non-profit company experiences, unless you specifically want to go down that charity route or that non-profit route. So Oluwafemi did want to go down the non-profit route. He joined our program. Within a week, he'd learned everything that he needed to approach the non-profit that he wanted to work with. He approached them, sold them on him being a board member. They were completely sold. They offered him a board position. He wrote about it on LinkedIn, which is one of the things we say to do. As soon as you get your first board seat, post it on LinkedIn, because what happens is that goes out to your network. Your network suddenly views you in a completely different way. Now you're sitting on the board of a company. It's like it's a complete light bulb moment for them. And what happens is oftentimes your network will say, oh, I didn't know you wanted to sit on boards. So let me introduce you to this person. And oftentimes you'll get your second, your third board seat just from that one LinkedIn post. So that's exactly what happened to Oluwafemi. Another non-profit saw that he was sitting on board, said, oh, we didn't know that you'd be interested in that. Would you want to sit on our board? So within 2 weeks of joining Veblen, he was sitting on 2 non-profit boards that he wanted to sit on, which, yeah, really, really cool. So look, here's the special offer. It's $9,000 normally. Click on the link. You can get it for $5,550 after an interview. If you want, you can split the payments over 3 months. It's a little bit more expensive if you do that, but you can get started today. Look, the real question is just what would it be worth to you to be a part of a network like this, to be connected to people that are sitting on boards, that are ambitious, that are driven, that are going through this? Because if that's valuable to you, then that alone is probably worth it. It really is. Like I get inspired by our members. They are doing such cool stuff. And every day people are coming back into the community and saying, hey, look, I just met with this business owner. They're looking for a board. They're looking for somebody in South Africa. They're looking for somebody with tech experience. They're looking for somebody from the F&B industry. And so that you've got these new opportunities coming in all the time just through that network. It's super, super powerful. Okay, we also do speed networking. So this is a relatively new thing. Every 2 weeks, we do this speed networking, which is a chance for you to meet other members. So obviously you've got your accountability group that you connect with every week, but you can now connect easier to other members that you might not have met. Matthias, who I touched on earlier, I'm not going to go through all this, but he's, how cool is this? 10 weeks ago, Matthias joined. He now sits on 4 boards, which is, yeah, amazing. Okay, we have, like I said, our own board does monthly AMA. So it's an hour where you can ask them any questions about your own journey, what you're, anything that you're struggling with, any opportunities that you've got, just share it with them. We also have an ambassador program. So once you've kind of sat on a few boards, once you've started earning money, you can become an ambassador for Veblen Director Program, which means that you get free access so as long as you're an ambassador, you never pay any fees. So once your 3 years is up, you can continue on free as long as you're an ambassador. They also get monthly sessions with me about their own careers. So there's lots of bonuses like that. Susie is one of those already. She joined just before Christmas, or just after Christmas. Yeah, just before Christmas last year. And within, what was that? Yeah, 2 months, she had got 3 board seats. Yeah, way faster than I ever got board seats. But really, really impressive. So yeah, look, if you think this is something that you would like to be a part of, then I would love to have the team chat with you. Like I mentioned, we can only take 5 people, so do book on that link now and start filling it in, just so we can manage the time. Then of course we've got the opportunities. Now, look, the whole idea is that you're going to go out and you're going to find your own opportunities, but what happens is existing members keep bringing opportunities into the network because they want to sit on boards with other Veblen members. And we've got more and more companies coming to us all of the time saying, hey, look, we want Veblen trained members sitting on our boards. So we have a little section in the forum where we have these advisory board positions and other board positions come in. We've got some partnerships with organizations. So there's lots and lots of opportunities always coming in. And the best opportunities are still the ones that you get for yourself. And we'll show you how to do that. But for companies that want to join us, we do have this advisory section on the website where they can apply. It's free for them to apply. And so we have companies every week do that. When you join, you also get this 30-day checklist. So you only really need to spend about 20 minutes a day every day for 30 days. And that's, you'll knock it out of the park if you do that. That's not normally what happens is in that first 30 days, it's kind of setting your baseline. So you follow all of the instructions, you get everything done, you get connected. And then normally, if you've done everything right, in the second 30 days, is like you'll have started talking to companies about board positions. In the second 30 days is when normally 2 or 3 of them, or at least one of them, will offer you a board position, which is why when I wrote the book, Boardroom Blueprint, I said, boost your career with a board seat in 60 days. You normally do a lot of the work in the first 30 days and you get the results in the second 30 days. So that's how that works. How are we doing for time? I get 5 minutes. Right. One of the things that I talked about was building your profile. One of the things that we noticed was a lot of our members didn't have very good profiles when they came to us. It was very difficult to find them on Google. We want prospective boards to find you. And so we have ended up including in your package a media profile. And this is a $5,000 PR package. You get published, you have a couple of published interviews, you get podcasts, interviews, you get a whole 2 years of thought leadership questions that get published under your name. So it's a really, really good chance for you to build your profile. The thing with media is that media will not feature you unless you've already been featured. Again, it's a little bit like boardrooms. So we get you those first interviews so that you can send those to additional journalists, and they can see that, and then they can follow up with you. Oftentimes, the companies that you join will be looking to raise capital. One of our members sat on the board of a company. He posted that they were looking to raise money. Another board member, another Veblen member actually chose to invest. I'm going to show you later. We actually have a whole section. We've set up a whole different company on how to capital raise. You're going to get free access to that as well. The whole idea is this is a high performing environment. There's so much going on. There's so many cool people. It's really difficult to try and do this on your own. It's really difficult to stay motivated. So that's why being part of an accountability group, being part of a wider community makes such a big difference to things. And yeah, if you're serious about this, you really want to give yourself every opportunity. Look, learning to raise capital is a really useful skill. The better you are at it, the more valuable you become. And so I ended up setting up another community. This is a global community, has about 600 members in it. It's all about how to capital raise. It's got a lot of capital raisers in there. It's got a lot of venture capital in there, family offices, private equity in there. Normally that's it's $99 a month. So but as a Veblen member, you get free access to all of that as well. So that's all completely free because we want you to be able to. Basically, what that means is that if you go and talk to a company today, you can basically say, hey, look, I am connected to the Veblen Direct program, so I'm connected to hundreds of board members sitting around the world. I'm also in the Guild network, so I'm connected to hundreds of capital raisers all around the world. So regardless of your background, you're already super, super valuable to most businesses just because of the connections that you bring to the table. So that was really kind of the ideas behind it. So the Veblen program is 12 months. You're going to get 36 months, all the knowledge you need, the network, the accountability board, all of the opportunities, monthly Ask Me Anything sessions, the ambassadors that support you, the live coaching throughout the month, perfect publishing package, which is worth 5,000, learning to raise capital, which is worth at least 2,500. All of that gets thrown in. The process is super simple. Click that link, fill in your details, have a chat with one of our team. They're lovely. They're just going to, and look, if they feel that they're not going to be able to add value, they will tell you. If they feel that you're a good match, then they will invite you to join. A couple more examples. Mazen's in Saudi Arabia. Again, somebody thought that they wouldn't get paid board seats, but within 3 months they had got 3 paid board seats. Yeah, super simple. Whole idea is that you just within 12 months, ideally much sooner, you're updating your LinkedIn profile with this. And once you're on that ladder, life just becomes so much easier because other people will come to you and will offer you more opportunities. So we just need to get on that first one. All right, we have got to the end. Hopefully you got value from this. If you are serious about your board career, I would love to see you in the Veblen program. I'd love to see you and support you on your board career. It's super, super exciting. It's a fun community to be a part of and very, very inspiring. I appreciate all of the questions that have come in. They've been great ones. And thank you for engaging. And yeah, hopefully I will see you in the boardroom. Thank you very much, everyone.